So I'm MITA GUPTA. I am based in New York City. I've been living in New York City for the last almost 22 years. However, I was actually born in Ann Arbor, Michigan. My parents came from India in the 60s. And so I grew up as a second generation American here in the US. And my path from Michigan and then to Ohio, which is ultimately where I grew up, was and how I landed in New York was after my MBA. I started my career in management consulting with a leading consulting firm called A.T. Kearney, a global firm. And I actually had several offers from them, one in Chicago, one in Singapore, and one in New York City. And ultimately, I decided to join them in New York. And I think for me, one of the key reasons, as I had made a choice to move towards the business world and go into that line of work, I had always been attracted to management consulting as a field because it allowed you to touch many different industries, many different functions. And so frankly, I started as a generalist with A.T. Kearney. And I was there for 2 years. And right around the year 2000, the internet boom happened. And I was asked to join this company called ICG Commerce as part of the co-founding team. And ICG Commerce focused on procurement of the goods and services to support Fortune 500 enterprises. And we were focused on working with multiple companies across a transaction engine to manage spend and ultimately drive savings and shareholder value. But those beginning years, I ultimately spent 12 years at Procurian, and those early years were all about wearing multiple hats: marketing, business development, delivering of our services. I even did scouting of our offices to find real estate and things of that nature. And it was quite a journey over the 12 years working with a group of people, group of experts who became my friends. We went through multiple business models before landing on what really worked and what was going to generate value for our clients and for us as co-founders, as the co-founding team. And then I was asked by a company called GEP to join them, to help them build the business. And GEP was also focused in the procurement area. And I have been with them for 9 years, but the journey with GEP has been it's a company focused on procurement and supply chain now in services and software. And I focus on the growth of the growth strategy and the business development related to our company. And when I joined GEP almost 9 years ago, we were a significantly smaller company. And to this point, we've been growing 30 to 40% year over year. So I'm proud to have been part of that journey. We have a growing catalog of Fortune 500 and Global 2000 companies that we work with, including Google, including ExxonMobil, including Bayer Pharmaceuticals, Johnson & Johnson. So it's been a real journey to be able to establish our footprint around the world. That's brought me to where we are today, early 2021, and my path is just as it was before. We're continuing to grow. We have targets of 35% plus, and I'm very focused in the US and Europe and Asia Pac. And right now with COVID, of course, it's all doing it from one's own home. But hopefully, that's a whole other topic, but hopefully we'll have an acceleration of the vaccine and get back to a new normal soon. One of the things that I did actually after I finished my undergrad, which was in business at Wharton, I decided I was going to be a lawyer, and I went immediately to law school. But I did not find my passion there. After 1 year, I went to the dean of the law school and said, look, I need to take a leave of absence because I need to explore some other things, other areas that I think are going to make me well, certainly that I was more passionate about and make me happier. And I did. And I never went back. I never went back to law school. And that was a huge decision to make. I was only 22 years old. And it was, now I look back on it. I didn't look back. Actually, I didn't think about the decision. I didn't regret the decision. It was what I needed to do. I needed to leave to find my path, so to say. What I think is most important, and you don't know all the details right out of the gate when you're in college or when you're much younger, but it is truly about finding your passion and following your passion. And I will also say, sometimes those words sound a bit empty. It sounds a bit cliche. But I think the reality, and my reality, was it happened step by step through the choices that I made, through my MBA and then going to A.T. Kearney. Those choices then led me down the path of where I am, which is over the last 20 years, having started up and being part of a team that's built two great companies. And that passion, I believe, then it fosters curiosity. That passion fosters innovation. That passion fosters success. And that passion fosters fun. So I think it's believing in oneself. Where are your curiosities, where your interests are, and then taking those steps that get you further towards your goal, further towards those passions. I mean, in the context of the pandemic, certainly the biggest trend, it's also in our industry and many industries, but the biggest trend is the reliance on technology. The need to have multiple capabilities, whether it is this type of a conferencing service that we're using on Zoom or many others, to have that reliable service, to have everyone within the company or your supplier or any stakeholder involved having that easy access to the connectivity and to the applications needed for all of this to work. We are lucky in a way that this happened in 2020, where we already have many access to many different applications that exist. If this happened 15 years ago, it would have been much more of a struggle. I'm someone that has traveled a great deal, a considerable amount over my nearly 25-year career. And we've learned to do it a different way, right? We've learned to get on these conference calls like many others. I'm not saying anything new, but like many others, in order to build relationships with my clients, in order to design solutions, in order to understand what are their challenges to solve and how can I and my company help them solve it. And it's a different way to do it versus being in person, meeting in a professional environment like the office, or being able to go to dinner and really get to know folks, which is a big part of how you develop client relationships and client relationships. And internally, I have team members that are located in Shanghai, in Singapore, in India, in London, the Netherlands, all over the world. And we've all had to learn, that new way of working where we're going to get on video and, sometimes you're still in your sweatpants or not, depending if you're talking to your clients or not. But anyway, I think that the technology, first and foremost, is the biggest trend that is going to define and redefine our new normal. I would relate that also to my particular industry as well, because the way we do procurement, the way we do supply chain, it is all about digitization. It is all about driving connectedness. It's all about leveraging large amounts of data and data lake and being able to process it quickly and drive visibility into the process. So it's something that for me is impacting how we create our product and service solutions as we speak, as well as how we do business. The last 5, maybe even 10 years, but especially in the last few years, it is all about how do you do more with less. So how do you do more with less? That is taking many activities, processes, and digitizing them. And so what we're very focused on is across the procurement process, across the supply chain process, how can you digitize 80, 90% of it? Not all of it. There's always going to be some human interaction. But what happens with our resources is they then focus on being true problem solvers. So it changes the nature of the mix of the types of resources you need and the efficiencies you can drive. So oftentimes we are working with chief procurement officers, chief financial officers, head of shared services. These folks all work together, but ultimately the CFO is focused on their P&L. How do they ensure that they are optimizing profitability and driving the most value to their shareholders, because we're working with public companies. And so for what we work in terms of procurement and supply chain, it is all about how do you manage your costs? How do you optimize that spend, the overall spend that funds the goods and services in your business? And how do we make sure that we are driving that function at the optimal cost? Over the last 1 year, the trend, if you will, and the questions that we're working on with our clients is, it's very much about how much to leverage China and this concept of de-Chinification. The question of how much do you regionalize or localize? Do you actually move manufacturing facilities or reorchestrate that footprint? Especially in the pharmaceutical industry, which is so dependent on the APIs, the advanced pharmaceutical ingredients, many of which are manufactured in China and in India, of course, and the automotive industry. And so there are many industries that are very reliant on specific locations, specific countries, of course, to drive low-cost production. And so that is very much part of what we are consulting with our clients on, and how to optimize that supply chain, how to optimize that footprint, not only for the near term, but certainly for the longer term. And politics does play a part of it, because as administrations change, whether it is in the US, whether it is in Germany, whether it is in China, the politics will dictate tariffs, for example, or taxes, or other policies that can very much impact supply chain and your sources of supply. The brain power, the brain trust that has come together to develop these vaccines in record time. And now we have Pfizer, and now we have Moderna and AstraZeneca, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was just approved. So we're now going to have literally more sources of supply. And as an entire world unit, in terms of our global humanity, we have to, I think the biggest challenge is how do you distribute it fairly and equitably amongst all the countries. Not an easy problem to solve, but we are going to get there. But I do think that because no matter what, where we are today in 2021, as a woman, you're still always the minority, period. You're always the minority. So it is important to be confident. It is important to be confident in yourself, confident in whatever topic or field that you're in, right? When you're going in and you're speaking to clients or to stakeholders, or internally, even to your own teams. I think you have to be your authentic self. It is okay to be emotive. It is okay to be assertive. It is okay to want to carve your path. I will also say sometimes we have to be a little bit better than our male colleagues. We do. We still have to prove ourselves a little bit above and beyond. But I don't want that to be a stereotype or a thought that would hold anyone back, because I believe that you're smart, you're intelligent. Find your passion, and the confidence and the knowledge and the intent that comes along with it, that comes along naturally. And so I think, yeah, it's if you have a dream, if you have a passion, if you have goals, set them and go after them. And there really is no reason anything should stop you. And there may be pivots in your career path. There may be a time where you decide for a couple of years, look, I'm gonna whether it's stay home, take care of the family, or choose to do something else, that's all okay, as long as you are moving towards what your goal is and you're confident in where you're headed. You've heard me say this a number of times through the course of this discussion, but follow your passion. That will lead you in the right direction for you. And it may not always be a straight path. That is okay. But believe in yourself, believe in that passion, and that will take you to where you want to be.